Welcome back, everybody. We just saw that wrap-up of Minnesota State, Mankato, and Ohio State, but now we're on to other pastures. Not necessarily greener pastures, we're just different pastures. We got Indiana University Bloomington, and we got Cleary University, but this is a very interesting, I would say, aspect of the CSL stream is that we're moving from two teams that I think we weren't 100% familiar with the rosters, and now we're going to a different match, but Cleary University is a brand new newcomer, and meanwhile, Indiana University is just completely blown open scene right now. They're the hot topic, I would say, within their conference. Yeah, and this is something that we were talking off stream. It's like, why do I know all these players? I feel like I played against them. I feel like I know of them and maybe seen them in tournaments. I mean, we've run a lot of different stuff. But again, this is the great opportunity. And to be honest, if you want to prove yourself as a player, you could do worse than playing against Indiana. Tide, Strati, and Orso. Getting stuff done, just dominating through so many brackets, so many open events. And so this is definitely a team that I'm shocked to both see at 0-1, but that's what this league play is all about in NACE Starleague. It is very competitive. It is back and forth, and so you do not want to really have any hiccups out within all of this commotion as it goes through.
Yeah, well, that is the nature of competition as well, and of course, we are looking a heck of a long way down the line here, Taco, but, having one loss certainly hurts your playoff chances if you know that MS&T Gold might be one of the strongest contenders in your group. We haven't had a chance to take a look at what exactly the whole context is here for IU, or for Cleary, but I can almost certainly tell you that they are going to have a heck of a lot of competition and need a little bit of luck if they want to get out of this group after sustaining this loss here. So this could easily be an important game. I have no idea. We'll just have to wait and see what happens here. The players ready and on the field. Cleary in the blue and IU in the orange. Let's see what the Hoosiers have in store for us.
So I'm looking for a very aggressive start, but most importantly, this is a team that loves to pass, but all has fantastic mechanics to be able to open the game up on the solo play, and that's going to be quite the plateful for Cleary University to have to contend with. And so if they can handle that pressure and get shots of their own, then I think they're in good space. A little bit of double commit in the midfield, but not going to hurt them too much. They're high lob into the mid, and for the first minute, or at least the initial impressions, I feel like things are fairly even so far.
I did see a chance for Roach to break through the opposing defense near the beginning. It didn't look like it was anything particularly significant, but it still was there. And outlier plays do happen. Tom K going to try to lead their team down, and unsuccessful in doing so. A safer rotation here for Philly as well. Things are getting a little bit dicey on the back end now for Cleary. Orso off the backboard, no touch by Tom K, and that one will still be blocked away. Good option coverage there by Philly, following up that ball. Entering the shot lane, he's not there. We'll get past the first minute completely unscathed.
So these touches actually out from Cleary University. The thing I'm more impressed about is they're not just getting saves and clears downfield. It feels like they're very conscientiously putting that ball in a position in which they could follow it up, or more importantly, they're getting a touch into another player to keep possession. And it doesn't seem like that's a high-level thing. That's the basics of passing, but it shows that they're not going to be intimidated by a team that arguably they're lower ranked than, and so therefore they should be a bit more apprehensive of. If you take it to these top teams, you can certainly throw them for a ride.
And of course, we've been singing many praises here to IU, and yet, of course, they have not qualified for Collegiate Rocket League just yet. They have gotten quite close on one occasion, which was a very recent occasion, I might add, just yesterday, but they're going to forfeit goal number 1 here. Roach will be in charge of this. A bit of a strange concession here in the midfield.
Roach is slapping that one through, and that is going to be completely untouched, mainly because every single person from Indiana started creeping up on that read, but no one actually ended up challenging it. When you do get in those situations, when you do actually have to try and make sure a ball is pressured, you have to obviously make sure that all of your bases are covered. No one watching the goal, and it's just going to walk through unattended.
IU the first deficit of the game. And as you mentioned, it almost seems in parallel to what we saw in the last series, Taco, with Ohio State being a little bit apprehensive about making some plays on the ball. Hopefully the parallels end there for the Hoosiers' sake, although Cleary probably fairly happy about that up till now. It will be touched back into their own half. It's a nice 1-2 pass here, and that one will actually bust through. It didn't look like it had that much velocity, but Tide's placement is just enough.
Yeah, that one took it out of me. I actually didn't expect as much power to get on that at all, but I was able to get a decent amount, so much so that that is no easy clear from the defender. So 1-1, quick answer, and IU right back in it right before halftime.
They are. Still going to have to score at least one more. However much it may have been a fluke on the back end for them to give up goal number 1. There still is some life here for Cleary. We've seen a non-zero amount of offense since then as well. Try to continue here at the midfield line. Tom K is at least able to stop outside, looking for a pass mid now as both teams, it seems. Just the controlling touch on either side could have been the defining factor in that particular offense, but we're noticing a lot of the neutral game being played here. Of course, as I say it, Orso pretty free. Look at the net, couldn't put it on target. Neither can Tide. Tom K got a little bit out in front of it, and just enough of the mental game was being played there to stop that one going in.
So we'll have to see the continuation here from Indiana. Orso, nice shot from them, and you can't have to talk about that shot without talking about this setup. Tide, a gentle tap, and then just putting it on a plate.
Yeah, that's a beautiful pass out to the top of the box. As well and truly a one-timer as you could possibly ask for in Rocket League. And of course, the coverage not quite there for the defense. They want to try and stop that one out at the source of the shot. I completely understand and empathize with that situation for a defender. But unfortunately, they are not able to make it happen. IU now with the lead. Might be looking for more. Orso with that double tap certainly could have put them in a good scoring position. They still have control of this ball though. Tide pass back down to Orso now off the corner. They are looking for it. Orso up high and Roach makes the save. Excellent deflection.
So Tom K able to clear it out, but only temporarily. That felt like more of just, please, I need boost, I need some time off type of clear, or just sending it straight down. And I think this was the phenomenon, that emotion that I was really waiting for from the team as confident as Cleary. And it seems like IU is starting to really roll down the field, take every opportunity. Look at the coordination. Tide setting up a ball in an awkward position, and then they're going to bury it himself.
Fortunate for Philly to not make that contact, but it's a hard lesson you're going to have to learn, is that you cannot let yourself panic in those kinds of situations. Tide is there to punish you. Now just under 70 seconds to go here. They're going to have to formulate some sort of significant response if they want to get back into this game. Double commit on the defense. Tide is forced away, but Orso plenty of control on this one. Well, he's be able to make a safe transition downfield. I love that idea on the backboard. Cleary, they're not just out of it yet. They still show some signs of life here, but it's IU who are making so many impactful clears downfield, and they will be gifted one as well. Strati out of the corner here, and a bit of an own goal for number 4.
Well, sometimes when you're playing this fast and you're playing against a team that is kind of starting to get the brunt of a lot of your offense, I think plays like that tend to happen, not because the other team can't read it, but because they feel like they need to get to it as quickly as possible, and they disregard, really, do I have this read 100%? Because you're thinking that third player is going to be crashing through and scoring it if you don't get to it, and then you mistouch it. So you can't really put too much blame on him. But right now, this is just turning into interesting game number 1. It started fairly even, but now it seems like IU has this game figured out.
Yeah, perhaps it was just that one fluke at the beginning. We talked about it was IU getting very anxious to move downfield, caused them to have a bit of an issue with nobody challenging and allowed a goal against, but seem to be holding strong on the defense. Just now, Tom K denied out of the corner. They've got really no fear moving forward here. The remainder of the game will tip away. No problem here for IU. I think the question now resides with Cleary. What can they do to match the coordination of the Hoosiers in game 1 here? Because it was absolutely impressive on the offensive side.
I think for sure, if you're trying to move through the midfield and contest, you have to make sure you are being very, very careful with the ball, because at times it felt like Cleary was tapping the ball forward or trying to keep it close, and it made Indiana have to play faster, but people are careful. They can't just dive in. They can't just do everything. But at the end of the day, if you do start being conscientious and the team starts countering it, then you need to focus on those individual mechanics. You need to make sure that you are taking care of business on the backboard within the midfield. And I felt like they're kind of waiting back a lot of times. Uncontested shots are really the bane of your defense if you're allowing a team like Indiana to be shooting from the top of the box.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I'm even looking back at some of the replays happening here, and, you know, it's understandable. Sometimes you find yourself in a spot on the defense where, you know, your gut instinct takes over and you might make a play that's not necessarily well advised, but you know, you have to try and get around that. You have to try and see the plays before they happen, right? You can't just go on autopilot and make that back post rotation and then be surprised when something out of the ordinary happens, because IU has shown now that they have the creativity, they have the game sense to know where the other players are, to pass it directly to their teammates and make something effective happen out of pretty much nothing. You have to be able to have that raw option coverage. You can't necessarily rely on just your brain to go on autopilot and do all the work for you. So moving to game 2 here, that may be the key. You start to get a little bit more proactive there on the defensive side. Force IU to do something just so that way it's not unexpected for your defense. So that way you can at least compete in the neutral game and then take steps from there to see what more you can do.
Yeah, and I think taking those steps and not getting flustered. I think there's a very common issue with teams that are trying to be on the come up, to try to form more chemistry and get more consistent wins, is that they get into a game like this against an opponent that's really going to test them, and then once one goal goes in, it feels like everything shifts to a point. It starts getting panicky, and they start trying to improvise stuff not out of necessity, but just because they feel like they don't really trust in the game plan. If you have a style that you want to play, make sure you stick to it, and if the other team is adapting to it, then you also have to adapt. Don't just allow these hits to come through. I guess it's so tough, though, when Indiana is just always looking for that clever touch.
Almost got a little bit of a fake there as well, tied through the midfield. Had something looking good for just a second, but it did get turned away. That being said, there's a heck of a lot of offense going on here for Indiana, and of course, as soon as I say it, get a shot on the other side. It was easily deflected there by Orso. So a little bit of a runaway at that time, but now the counter is there. Strati in the mid. They just let the opponent pass it right to them for goal number 1.
Look at the vision to get this shot, though, because Tom K lobs it out, but they are right in front of it. So Strati could have just plowed right through it and tried to shoot it through, but they know there's only one place that's going to go through. Just tucking it slightly near post, past that near side, and into the goal. So good job from Indiana. And I think this is something that we saw in Ohio State in the other game, that they weren't really putting away those easy goals or being able to put it on target. That is no such problem from Indiana, it seems, at the start of the series.
And no doubt about that. Having a heck of a time out there on the offensive side. That was one of the big talking points that we put forth, right? Is if Cleary can start to find their footing on the defensive end and really stop this Indiana attack, then we can talk about this series as a whole. But until that happens, Tide is just going to be having a field day here in these 1v1s.
Yeah, I talked about how each of these players can definitely have the solo play, and that doesn't look like much is happening, but look at what Bird has to do on that. Tide takes an air dribble, it forces a challenge, but they hold the flick, and then last second, little push to the left past the defender. It doesn't look flashy, but oh my goodness, is it effective.
They'll certainly do it now. Tide once again up in the air, has Orso to work with, and a double from Orso, a direct handoff in the sky. And the defense just left speechless here, Taco.
It looks like they screwed it up. They're able to get it. It's technically a double tap right off the ground and into the net. It is, honestly, that might have even helped, because the challenge might have been blocked, but if you tuck it underneath the defender, there's nothing they can do. You're putting on a clinic. What a pleasure to see, and we're not even 90 seconds in.
I wonder if this counts as a teaching moment for having to have the raw option coverage that I was talking about. You know, it's not about what the opponents are going to try to do necessarily, what you think they're going to try to do, I should say. It's about what they can do. You have to be ready for anything at this point. Because IU, they get some creative plays, and this might be a little bit too creative in front of their net there. Rather passive on that one. They do get it out, but they have to use the post as a bit of an asset there. Cleary going to try and keep it in the corner. Very little success on that initial play. Tide on the backboard actually opts to go down to the floor, and they are ready for it this time. So clearly, they have their wits about them when it comes to playing on the offensive end, even a demolition here to try to gain them some more space and time. But they still lose out on the control.
We've seen a long roll down, and this has been the calmest the game has been. We don't have any goals, and also IU is starting to rotate a bit wider, making sure they have the boost locked down, and that's where I want to see Cleary start to march into those spaces. Try to keep all the options covered on defense, of course, but then on offense, try to knock it in a position in which you can generate something, kind of like how IU is doing it. Never a direct attack. They always have options, and eventually one of them is going to put it through.
That is true, but Roche really needs some backup here. You got to ask yourself where the rotation is coming from here. You cannot make that kind of a question, though. That's the problem. You have to know where your backup is going to be. When Roche tries to make that diving save, of course they're going to have some difficulty getting back to it, and that's where Bird or Tom K needs to be there. There cannot be any sort of uncertainty. about that defense, and immediately again here, they have no plan with this. They just try to drive it out to somebody, and there wasn't the communication. It's an easy takeaway for Arso.
That's one of the hallmarks of a good team, is understanding when there is a opportunity to really mess with the defense and to be able to put away a chance, you're not going to let it go by the wayside. Orso's rotating out and then says, wait a minute, when they turn off ball cam and just immediately rechalls the ball. Puts it in for number 5. And it seems so simple, but there's so many teams that just rotate out. They're so focused on maintaining that structure that they're never open to that clever improvisation.
So looking for another one here. Will not find it, denied by the upright, but you are absolutely right, Taco. And it feels like, you know, one of the biggest points I've been talking about is option coverage has been the name of the game here for IU. It seems that every opportunity they are there to force something out of their opponents, right? They're never leaving that uncertain spot, right? And it's working wonders for them, clearly. You know, at 6-0 now, I think we can start to talk a little bit less about the actual gameplay at hand and more about what's going on here behind the scenes for these players as they're trying to think critically about it. But there almost seems like never a single play for Cleary that IU doesn't have an intimate grasp on.
Right now, they're just trying to be able to make sure that there's always one player that can shut the door on something. They don't have it completely covered. Tied! He didn't even aerial for that save. He jumped for a different save and then missed it and then was able to just fly through it. I cannot believe what I just seen. I would love a replay on that. I don't think we're going to get it, but that just shows just how in control this team is. Even when things seem to go wrong, they're able to make it right.
Yep, they are just living it up right now in Game 2 here on DFH. I honestly am kind of at a loss for words. What does Cleary do to get back into this one? Another shot here. Bird will save it out. At this point, it's really just them trying to evaluate what IU is bringing to the table and how they're going to counter the Hoosiers. Because it feels like every time they get out onto offense, something just silly happens. Like right here, Strati to Orso makes 7 now, Taco, and the landslide simply continues.
Well, it looks like it's just Strati taking it up the sidewall because, oh, they're setting up an air dribble, they want to flex, they want to get a special goal. But no, if you look at the rest of the field, Orso and Tide both just attacked. They're landing on the enemy side with no boost, so they have to get out, reposition, make sure that they get back on offense. And so Strati, instead of just shooting that ball, they take it up the sidewall, which buys their team probably an extra 2, 3, 4 seconds to be able to get back, reposition, and then enter right back in. And then we saw it, the goal go through off the middle pass, but that's only available because IU has an intimate understanding of where each other are, how much time they need, if you're getting back still, how much boost you have, all of that clicks. When you have the communication, when you have the mechanics, and you have the confidence, really, sky's the limit.
Again, here they are just having some fun out there, they are. You can see Tide, a little bit of freestyle just on that recovery there. Completely unnecessary, does it anyways. As they might go for 8 here, Orso off the backboard, has no boost to work with. Strati, though, will weave it through 2 defenders. At this point, I feel like the defense, you can hardly say that they're playing at full capacity. I don't really think they're investing themselves into Game 2 at this point. They're just trying to figure out what they can do to counterplay IU.
Yeah, and obviously, if Cleary is not already in this mindset, then you just got to let go of the tilt to say, okay, yeah, we really let this one get out of hand. The first game, I think, was pretty decent in the beginning, and then it kind of got out of control. But you just got to say, GG, go next. Understand that it's just IU running up the score, trying to stat pad. They're going to get one more, put it at 9-0 between the end of the game. But this is a good team. You are going to struggle, and accepting that is fine. You just got to make sure that you're implementing those quality saves, be able to shut down these passes earlier, focus on that possession, and you can be right back in it. They were not getting blown out in the beginning of game number 1, but over time, they just didn't know how to counter.
Yep, that seems to be the case. And 14 shots here for IU. 9 for 14. That's quite a good turnover rate when you think about it. But on the other hand, Cleary, they had 6 shots, so not a non-existent defense. But I mean, when you do get outscored by 9 goals, then generally speaking, you're probably not terribly confident in those odds. And we are noticing, of course, Bird came in for Game 2. Philly rejoining now for Game 3. But we can see the replay, Taco, I think, of what you were looking for, potentially. I have a couple of saves here on the IU side, even. And Tide... This was a one right out in front, just pre-jumps that one with absolute ease. No questions asked.
There's just the only thing that amazed me about that is that they saw the pass off the sidewall and then Tide pre-jumped it, and I was like, oh, you're not gonna get that, and then they didn't. And then the shot comes through, and it's really well placed. And it's the far side, and Tide, still landing, is able to then say, oh, I missed it. It's okay, I know the shot's coming. And just glide over, and then gets the same. It's like they just knew that was going to happen. It's just they're so far. It's they're 2 moves ahead in this chess match, and they're playing so incredibly. Cocky is the bad way to say it, but they are. They're just be able to flex all over the field, and until Cleary is able to really shake things up and show that, no, you need to adapt to us. You need to be able to respect our touches. Then, what's it going to take, I suppose, from Cleary University outside of just got to play with speed and you got to challenge quicker.
Well, I mean, that's also a big part of the equation, Taco, as you mentioned that they're playing a little bit cocky, to be honest. And I would care to say that, yes, they are. I mean, look at the confidence that Tide has making that challenge out in front of the opposing net. That they sometimes get the kind of creativity. As I believe Strani might be having some technical difficulties here. You wouldn't know it by looking at the gameplay right now. Orso will put number 1 on regardless of playing a man down. But this is the advantage that they get. They can just do whatever they want. They can do things that you wouldn't expect out of players of this caliber, and it throws off the other team.
Just look at the lack of hesitation. Orso 50s that, and the moment the tires hit, they're not thinking about, okay, do I have that read? Do I need to boost up? They just speed flip right directly forward, and then as soon as they land off that speed flip, they aerial for it to be able to get that shot off. And meanwhile, the defender rotating back, they thought they had a lot of space, and then suddenly all of that evaporated, and then they just have to contest basically a pre-jump, the shot coming through. And yes, you would say you can't really tell based off this gameplay, but just because IU is just incredibly confident on every single read, and as long as they're playing smart with the ball, they don't really need to panic. Yeah, the boost might be an issue, but apparently so far that they have more than enough to spare.
And they'll continue to drive here. Okay, now way up high. Strati still has not been moving this game. But I will reiterate how they seem to be staggeringly unconcerned about the situation here, as Orso almost even puts that one on target way up high. Now Tomke for the squishy save. Let's get bailed out by Philly. But IU, they look incredibly confident in their gameplay at all times. I haven't noticed a single misstep here so far, and that is included. Orso now around the last player. Are they going to get this one all by themselves? They will! Another goal here. In a 2v3 scenario, as Strati still has not figured out what's wrong with their controller, or I don't know what is going on here. But this is ridiculous.
It's just, I don't have words. They're very good. They're just very good. And I don't like to heap praise on a team and try to feel it lopsided, but this is just evidence. This is a literal handicap. And they're cruising. They just know what they need to do. They're just kind of ball chasing it away, but I guess that's just kind of what 2s is. Yeah, I know, that's my inflammatory comment for the day. If you play 2v2, you're a ball chaser. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Yep, no, that's definitely Taco's hot take of the day. But, oh, Strati, they're back in the game. But you have to question now that they have returned to gameplay, what can Cleary do about this, because they were unable to put on any significant amount of pressure when it was just 2 of them, when it was just Tide and Orso.
You just got to swallow your pride and accept that that was a tough one, and then you just got to move on from there, because I mean, what else are you gonna do? This is just a very fast team, and to be honest, I've been in ranked games like that where player DCs and you're thinking, this will be easy, and then the other team is actually doing a really good job of maintaining a lot of pressure, or at least being able to keep you off the board. So certainly this is, I would say, not a shameful performance by any means. This is one of the best teams out there. Certainly a team that I expect to qualify for Collegiate Rocket League spring season, but certainly it can't be easy for Cleary to be able to face with this. Maybe they'll get one here, but even that shot, Tomke, they predicted the trajectory, but they could not be able to keep it between the sticks, and will so painfully just go wide.
That's quite the unfortunate scenario to find yourselves in now. 105 seconds on the clock. They've got to find 2 here. They want a chance of starting this reverse sweep. IU, they played away, albeit not very controlled, but Tomke not able to rotate out in time. We Tide has Orso pre-jumping from the ceiling on the opposite side. They won't find any sort of a connection, but again, they just feel so confident out there on the field right now. Their ability to rotate back, and their ability to read their opponent, and their ability to control the ball at basically any stage in their play defense, neutral, offense, it does not matter. They don't really care. Orso almost on the pre-tip there off the opposing backboard. It feels like really a close game with a 2-0 scoreline. But at the same time, it feels to me like we're just taking down the seconds.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what is going to happen until you start getting more consistent offense. And it doesn't even mean shots. The consistent offense to me is being able to get a shot off and then be able to just keep the ball around the offense. Just being able to force the defense to really have to earn any ball that goes out of their zone. And right now, with these deeper rotations, with kind of the inefficient boost usage, then you start to relinquish a lot of your possession because you'll hit it down, you get a shot off, and then you look back and the third man is just about getting to their back corner and there's no follow-up. So Indiana is able to just kind of sit back, absorb that pressure, and then inevitably get their clear because who's going to stop him at mid?
Sounds to be the case. Final couple of seconds ticking away here. The Hoosiers putting down the foot in this series. For all intents and purposes, is the final couple of seconds tick away. And this will be almost a clean sweep here for them. They did allow a goal in game one, but other than that, Cleary University has not had an amazing showing here. They'll have to look forward to the remainder of the season if they want to recuperate from this loss. But what a performance it was here for IU.
Yeah, and this is just, again, a little bit of reminder that they're not to be trifled with. Their one loss was against MST, which is a very good team in the West. I wasn't entirely sure who could possibly have beaten them. I saw that and I said, well, if there's going to be any team, I suppose it would be Missouri Science Technology. But come back to this game, this is really a reminder that they're not going to take any easy games. I mean, that game 2 was evident enough at the 9-0 scoreline, but then when you get to 2-0, this is a game in which they were handicapped and still able to play their game and still bring it to the other team. They're just so deadly with so many options.
Yeah, I don't think there are any significant surprises here. I mean, even when we were talking about this in the pre-match, Taco, we were discussing what we expected the outcome of this game would be, and I think we both kind of landed on the correct option. That's, of course, not to say that Cleary is a bad team. I just think they are getting a very rough cut. So if you guys are walking away from this series saying, like, oh, we're going to discount these guys, don't do that. I think that's the only way I can really say it, is just don't do that. Sure, they had a bad showing in Game 2. They did take Philly out of the game after Game 1, which granted was, I believe, a 1-4 scoreline, and then in Game 3, Philly was back in, and it was a 2-0 scoreline. If you have that kind of a scoreline throughout the 3-game series, that certainly seems a lot more competitive. So perhaps there was some substitution stuff going on in there that we're, of course not privy to, but either way, they did have some good looks. They just got outclassed by IU. And again, as you mentioned, Taco, we expect them to make it into the spring series here for CRL this next weekend, which is, of course, the premier circuit for Collegiate Rocket League.
Yeah, and I would certainly say that a performance like this is, of course, as we talk about with Indiana, okay, now they're 1-1, they're back on the right track, they can move from there, contest for that top spot. But at least for Cleary, this is just a nice reminder that this is the competition that you're going to be competing with. So games like this, even though they hurt, and I've been on the end of a lot of them when I used to play at college, it can be tough. So definitely take a learning lesson from that. And as luckily, we'll be able to sit down with one of those teachers, because we have Orso sitting by from Indiana University. And nice little 3-0. I think that went according to plan. Do you, Orso?
Yeah, I would say so. Unfortunately, in that third game, Stratty's fire alarm went off, so we kind of just rolled with it.
Oh, yeah, okay. We were kind of curious as to what was going on there, but it seems like you guys had everything well in hand here. So, I mean, talking on that point now, obviously, taking the loss against MS&T, not optimal, but you get right back on track here. Are there any other potential opponents in your division that you're worried about?
I'm going to be honest. I haven't taken a look at the full sheet yet. Ty's usually the guy who lets us know when to play. But I know Taco was there yesterday during CRL qualifiers. And
I was there too.
Looking...
Am I just getting discounted?
Squid was invisibly there. They were the bracket. They were the bracket monitor. I was commentating, but yeah, Squid was bracket monitoring. So he was actually DMing me on Discord about different stuff. So they were there. They bared witness to you. But yeah, you go on.
Then you guys know we fell down to in game 5 to Stockton, and so I'd say that's where our primary focus is, to make sure we're qualifying for CRL in this coming week, this weekend. But yeah, I mean, in regards to challenges, I'm not too sure who's in our full division. But we lost to S&T. We played in Grilla on Wednesday, did really well there. were happy with our performance this Sunday. So we're just going to keep using that performance to build on top of for the future games.
And I think that's a really important lesson, and I think kind of a lesson in perspective to have is that I think a lot of players, when they're in your position and you lose, I see them tweeting, "Oh, this is the worst. I'm so upset. I'm so grumpy, and I'm furious." But you're saying we were right there. We're so close, and then it's just simple adjustments, or like maybe one or two bounces goes different, like. And then it's fine. You take a loss, it's good, because we'll just take it as it comes. Oh, you didn't qualify through. Yeah, but we got all the way up right to the edge, and then you couldn't do it. But that just means that, you are capable of that play. So is that something you try to cultivate, or is that something you guys have tried to, like, try to reward at each other to take things kind of on the positive side for self-improvement?
Yeah, I would say the loss against Missouri S&T wasn't like in our heads wasn't feasible. Like we totally just had a bad game for sure. And so we went into Grilla, used that as an opportunity last Wednesday to work on some of our passing, work on our team building abilities, and then we took those skills we learned off of from the loss on Monday, the win on Wednesday, to Sunday with CRL, and we plan on utilizing those experiences to continue to build for NACE as well as CRL.
Well, I mean, obviously, you guys are starting to have some significant improvements over a relatively short period of time, because until, I mean, what, Taco? 6 months ago, maybe? If that, for the CCA Open? Until the CCA Open rolled around, you guys were not even on the map. So the improvement that you've had has been nothing short of completely outstanding. And I've been a huge proponent for a long time of experience at the top level only makes you better. Do you anticipate that there's a lot of room for improvement for your squad? Of course, now, one of the big factors also, with your not making it to CRL this last qualifier, there are 8 big teams who you now have no chance of facing off against. So you got to be feeling pretty confident about that. If you make it to CRL, you get that experience at the top level. Do you think there's lots of room for improvement for IU here?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. Tide and Big E, they play a lot together on Team Meteor. And so between Stratty and I, we're just trying to find our spot. And throughout this past week, we've seen massive improvement, like you mentioned. And I for sure think there's a major improvement specifically on my end, as well as a team effort to make sure that our cadence is very similar. We're playing, rotating very well, and we're staying strong on our shooting, as that's been our kind of main issue, has been, hitting that crossbar a bunch. So if we can kind of consolidate at net and as well as maintain our cadence as a team, I think that you'll definitely be seeing more of us.
I 100% love that philosophy, and I love the energy that you bring. I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the season. I don't even think you need it after that performance you just put through, but thanks for sitting down with us. Any shout-outs you want to give before we let you get back to your evening?
Other than esports at IU's Twitter page, that'll be all. Thank you guys for having me.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Orso. Have a good night.
Have a good one, guys.
But I love that approach. I love the mentality, and that's
So good.
exactly what I would
Yes.
expect out of a team that expects to succeed, but they're not getting cocky, they're not getting frustrated, they're not ranting, they're just saying, yeah, we lost, but, they're a good team. We're also a good team. We'll grow from this. It feels so simplistic, but
Yes.
I don't often hear that, and it's really refreshing to see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the kind of mentality that's really tough to come by, and even when we talk about, experience can really, iron out some of the faults of teams, that is usually where it happens, right? Is fixing the mentality. To see IU, like I said earlier, like 4-6 months ago, we had no idea that these guys were going to be as significant as they are. But, now to see them up and coming, and they've got that rock solid foundation that you absolutely have to have as a Rocket League team, it's just such a heartwarming thing for me personally, and it's a very grounded in reality confidence that they have in their odds to make CRL and the NACE playoffs.